Assalamu alaikum class. This lecture is the continuation of lectures for infectious disease epidemiology. In our last lecture, we were discussing the chain of transmission of infection from the infectious host or source or reservoir to the susceptible host. Today, the topic under consideration will be different modes of transmission of disease through which the infectious diseases can be transmitted from one person to another person. Going towards the last lecture, we have started discussing the chain of infection. And in our last lecture, we have discussed that the chain of infection starts with the source or reservoir of infection. The difference between the source and reservoir of infection we have discussed in detail. Just to repeat it and just remind it to you, the source is a living or non-living thing in which the infectious organism is present, and it is capable of transmitting the infection to the susceptible host. The reservoir is different from the source of infection because the infectious agent is not only present, but it multiplies in the reservoir before it gets transmitted to the susceptible host. We have also discussed that there are three different types of reservoirs: the human reservoir, the animal reservoir, and non-living things as reservoir. So the human reservoirs were further classified into cases and carriers. And we have discussed in detail in our last lecture that the cases can be primary case, secondary case, index case, and according to the gradient of infection, they can be classified into inapparent case, undiagnosed case, latent case, and the clinical case. The carriers are those who do not manifest the sign and symptoms, but they are capable of transmitting the infection. So they are capable of maintaining the chain of infection. The carriers were further subdivided according to the portal of entry, according to their infectivity, according to time. For example, temporary carriers, chronic carriers, convalescent carriers, healthy carriers. And there were some different types. For example, the carriers were healthy carriers, incubatory carriers, etc. So we have discussed in detail the source and the reservoir, how they maintain the chain of infection. Today, our main area of discussion will be the mode of transmission of infection through which the infectious agents enter into the susceptible host. So there are multiple modes of transmission of infection. The infection can be transmitted by close contact. It can be transmitted by respiratory route. The infectious agent can multiply and they can be transmitted by the use of different common source items. They can be transmitted by the orophycal route. They can be transmitted by contaminated water. They can be transmitted by contaminated utensils and contaminated equipment. So we have a large number of sources of transmission of infection through which the infectious agent can enter into the body and can infect the susceptible host. So let's discuss them, how the mode of transmission are classified. The modes of transmission are classified into two main categories. Number one is the direct mode of transmission, and number two is the indirect mode of transmission. The direct mode of transmission occurs due to the direct contact, and indirect mode of transmission contains some medium before transmission of infection. So going into the further details, the direct transmission is divided into the diseases which can be transmitted by the direct contact. This direct contact can be through skin to skin contact. It can be through mucous membrane contact. The direct transmission can take place by the droplet infection, and these droplet infections can be generated in the form of respiratory droplet, which are borne by coughing and sneezing, and they can infect a person who is sitting close by to the infected person. Then the contact with the soil can transmit a large number of infections, and we classify them as the soil transmitted infections. There are multiple other ways of infecting. For example, if the contaminated needle has contacted the skin or the mucosa, then the inoculation can take place, which is another mode of direct transmission. And then there is another transmission which is known as vertical transmission, which occurs from the infected mother to the uh, baby intrauterine or during the process of the birth while passing through the birth canal. The indirect modes of transmission can further be subclassified if there is vehicle involved, which can be the best medium of transmission of infection. This may contain food, this may contain the infected fluid, infected milk, infected egg, etc. Then there may be the transmission which is through vectors, and these vectors are basically the invertebrate uh, hosts which transmit the infection by multiple other routes as well. We will be discussing them in detail. Airborne transmission can take place, fomites-borne transmission can take place, and with the um, um, different daily use equipment. For example, the bedding or the linen or the daily use items, the spoon, the crockery which is being used by the patient can transmit the infection. And then an important source of infection, which maintains the chain of transmission through indirect routes, is the unclean hands and fingers. So basically, the major classification of the modes of transmission is through direct contact and through the indirect contact. And indirect contact, another medium, is basically involved in transmission of infection. So going further into detail, let's discuss these different modes of transmission. For example, the direct contact, in direct contact transmission, the skin to skin transmission or the transmission through mucous membrane can take place. When we talk about the respiratory route of transmission, there are the droplet nuclei and droplets which originate through coughing, sneezing, and talking. They can transmit the infection to the other person. Then the things of the daily use, for example, the bedding, the clothes, the crockery being used, the equipment which is of the daily use, the mobile phones are now playing a major role in the fomite-borne diseases. We have other routes of transmission, for example, the food and waterborne diseases. We have different vectors which can transmit the infection from one person to another person. And then we have different animals which can transmit the infection to the susceptible host. So let's discuss them one by one. The first and the foremost important mode of transmission which comes in direct contact is the direct contact of transmission. The infection which is transmitted by the direct contact from skin to skin, or it can be transmitted from mucosa to mucosa, or it can be transmitted from mucosa to skin, which can be categorized under direct contact. There are multiple diseases which spread by the direct contact from skin to skin. One of the example can be the scabies. For example, if an infected person shakes hand with another person who can be a susceptible host, the person suffering with the scabies can transmit this itch mite or the Sarcoptes scabiei through skin contact to the other person. Other diseases which can be transmitted from the skin contact are the leptospirosis, it can be leprosy. There are many skin infections. For example, the Staphylococcus aureus can be transmitted from skin to skin infection, and there are certain infections which can be transmitted by the close contact of the mucous membranes, and sexually transmitted diseases are one of the best example which can be explained, in which the direct contact plays an important role in transmission. Herpes simplex can be transmitted by the close contact through kissing, or by close contact of skin towards the vaginal and the basically anal region. If they are infected and there is close contact with these regions, the herpes simplex infection can be transmitted. The other sexually transmitted diseases, for example, syphilis, hepatitis B, gonorrhea, these are very, very important examples which can be transmitted by the direct contact. Another important thing which I want to discuss here is that the HIV is classified as a disease which can be transmitted by direct contact. But we must remember that HIV gets transmitted through the sexual route by the contact of mucous membrane with the mucous membrane of the susceptible host during sexual intercourse. Cannot categorize it as a disease which comes under the classification of the direct contact diseases, because it does not spread by hugging, it does not spread by kissing, it does not spread by using the fomites of the infected person. So this concept should be very clear, that the direct contact can further be subcategorized into two further subtypes. Number one is the sexual contact, and number two is the contact with skin to skin. So in skin to skin diseases, the most important one are, we have discussed, is the scabies and leptospirosis and leprosy, and many skin infections, eye infections come into this. And under the categorization of sexually transmitted diseases, we have a large number of lists which can be transmitted through the sexual route. So moving further, another type of direct mode of transmission includes the droplet infection. The droplets are basically the infectious agents which are excreted during coughing and sneezing, and they are surrounded by the water particles. That's why they are known as droplet infections. So basically, the infectious agent or the infectious particles which are surrounded by the water during coughing and sneezing, when they are generated, they are classified as the droplet infections. So these are basically the larger particles of more than 30 to 60 centimeters, but it is important to note that only the particles who have size of less than 5 millimeters can enter into the alveoli, because those particles who have a size of more than 10 millimeters, they are filtered in the and by the nasal hair which are present in the nose. So this is important, that what is the size of droplet nuclei, which are droplet particles which is generated during the process of coughing and sneezing, and when you are in close contact of the infected person who has the respiratory disease. The respiratory diseases can get transmitted from the infectious person to the susceptible host. Another important thing is that when these droplets, sometimes they can contaminate the conjunctiva, they can contaminate the skin, but the most important route of transmission of infection in this is the entry of the droplet into the respiratory route of the other person. So it is important to note here that the distance between the infectious person and the susceptible host should be maintained if somebody wants to avoid the droplet infection. And I will give you an example of a recent pandemic in COVID-19. The WHO recommendation is that one of the major mode of transmission of infection is the droplet infection. So WHO has categorically informed the general population that you have to keep a social distance, because in case of COVID-19, these are not only the clinical cases which can transmit the infection, but there may be carriers, there may be subclinical infectious person who do not harbor the signs and symptoms, but they may be infectious, and they can be able to maintain the chain of transmission of infection through coughing and sneezing. It's not only the coughing and sneezing, but the droplets are also produced during the process of talking. And when somebody is talking, the micro droplets also originate, and they are infective, and they can be transmitted to the other person. So it is basically the given information by the WHO to avoid the infection. The minimum distance should be maintained between two people. It should be more than almost 1 meter, or the distance should be more than 6 feet, is the WHO recommendation to avoid the COVID-19 infection from the susceptible host. The major route of the major infectious diseases which can be transmitted through this important route of infection include the respiratory diseases, which include measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, meningococcal meningitis, common cold, influenza, pneumonias, and many other respiratory diseases can get transmitted from the infectious person to the susceptible host through this droplet infection. So while discussing the droplet infection, two important things are important. Number one, that the distance should be maintained. And number two is the size of the particle which is generated. I have already informed you that the size of the particle should be less than 5 microns meter to enter into the respiratory tract of the other person, because if the particles or the droplets have a larger size of more than 10 millimeters, they get filtered from the nasal hair and they cannot get enter into the alveolar membrane. Another important thing while discussing the droplet infection is that these are what is actually the droplet? These are basically the infectious particles which are surrounded by the water vapors, and they are present in the air, and they can travel a distance through which the chain of infection is maintained. A large number of diseases get transmitted through the droplet infection. Moving further, another mode of transmission of infection through direct contact is the transplacental transmission. Another name given to the transplacental transmission is the vertical transmission, in which the infections can get transmitted from the maternal bodies to the body of the baby through the placental route, or through the process of birth while passing through the birth canal. The infection can also get transmitted, and this is also included in the transplacental transmission. The important examples of transplacental transmission in which the mother can transmit the infection to the intrauterine baby include torch infections. And torch means this is an abbreviation given to a number of diseases which can be transmitted. T and O in the torch stands for toxoplasmosis. R is for rubella. C is for cytomegalovirus, and H is for herpes infection. So these are the important infectious organisms which can be transmitted from the mother to the baby, and they can produce congenital malformations in the baby, because during this phase the baby is developing, and these infectious agents can have a greater impact on the body of the baby who is developing intrauterine. So sometimes the drugs can also get transmitted from this route, but we are not concerned about them while discussing the infectious disease epidemiology. We are only concerned with the infections which can be transmitted through this route. So moving further, another mode of transmission of infection through the direct transmission is the contact with the infected soil. And the most important example which we can discuss uh, is the transmission of tetanus through the contaminated soil, in which the contaminated larvas are produced, and when they infect the um, body, they produce the toxins, and the exotoxins are present, and this exotoxins then combine with the nervous system of the body, and it produces multiple type of convulsions, and there is a very peculiar type of presentation which resembles with the strychnine poisoning, and there are tonic-clonic seizures, and the person after getting infection dies. It's a fatal disease, and very few people can survive from the tetanus. It's a lethal disease. So the major uh, preventive mechanism through which we can prevent ourselves or community is the modes of it's the vaccination. So there are multiple other examples than tetanus. For example, we have soil transmitted helminthic infections, in which the larvae and the eggs are present, and through direct contact with the soil they can be transmitted to the human body. One of the other example in which the direct contact with soil can produce sign and symptoms in the body of an infected person include the hookworm infection. And we all know that the hookworm infection occurs, the major source of entry of the infectious agent into the body is the direct contact of bare feet with the soil, with the infected soil, in which the larvae penetrate the skin and they enter into the body of the human beings. So these are two very important examples which can be transmitted with the contact with soil. Moving further, another example of direct transmission include the inoculation directly into the skin or in the mucosa, and this inoculation can be in the form of, for example, tattooing, and the hepatitis B and hepatitis C are very notoriously associated with the unhygienic tattooing which is done in the West. Another example can be the contamination of needles and transmission of infection of hepatitis B to the susceptible host. Inoculation of contaminated blood can transmit multiple transfusion transmitted infections, which can include hepatitis B, hepatitis C. It can include syphilis. It can include transmission of malarial parasite, etc. Another example of direct inoculation into skin is the example of bite of dog can directly inoculate the Lyssa virus into the body of the susceptible host, and there are the signs and symptoms which are produced and known with the name of rabies. So we have discussed in direct mode of transmission of infection, we have direct contact, we have sexually transmitted diseases, we have droplet infections, we have contact with soil, inoculation into skin or mucosa, and then the vertical transmission. These are few of the important modes of transmission of infection through the direct contact. Moving towards the indirect mode of transmission, it is being said that the 5 F's are very important whenever we talk about the indirect transmission. And these 5 F's include the transmission through fluids, transmission of disease through contaminated fingers, transmission of disease through flies, contamination of disease agent through the fomites, and it can be through fingers, and the most important thing is through food, and this occurs very commonly with the when we discuss the transmission of disease through the orofecal route, in which the infectious agent is excreted in the feces, and then the feces contaminate the fluid, or there are unhygienic conditions in which the fingers get contaminated with the feces. The flies can act as mechanical vectors, which can transmit the infectious agent, and through these routes the disease can be transmitted directly to the infectious agent can get transmitted to the food, and when this contaminated food gets entered into the body through the oral route, it can produce the indirect mode of transmission of disease. When we talk about indirect mode of transmission of disease, we are concerned with the vehicle-borne diseases, we are concerned about vector-borne diseases, we are concerned about the diseases which are transmitted through the airborne route, we are concerned about the diseases which are transmitted by the unclean hands and fingers, and then last of all, the fomites, which can transmit the infection. So discussing them one by one, number one is the vehicle-borne transmission. The vehicle-borne transmission implies to the transmission of the infectious agent through some important vehicle. And this important vehicle, which can transmit the infection from the infectious person to the susceptible host, can include the water, it can include food, it can include multiple types of foods. And the most important one are the raw vegetables and the fruits, milk products, eggs, etc. The other mediums of transmission of infection can include blood, it can include serum, it can include the blood products, eyes, and sometimes the biological products such as tissue and organs can also act as a vehicle for the transmission of infection. When we discuss about the waterborne diseases, the most important disease which gets transmitted through the water is the cholera, or it can be acute diarrheal disease which can infect a large number of population. When we talk about the foodborne diseases, the most important example which comes to our mind is the case of typhoid fever. And in summer season, we have a large number of cases where the food is contaminated and it is not well preserved, and it is degradable because of the high temperature. The Salmonella typhi gets multiplied and it can transmit the infection. Another source which is important for the vehicle-borne diseases can include the blood, and we have discussed that the transmission by donating blood we can transmit the hepatitis B, hepatitis C, we can transmit AIDS, we can transmit malarial parasite, we can also transmit the syphilis. So this is an important another vehicle which can transmit the infection. And sometimes the organ transplantation can also transmit the infection, and the world-known example is the transmission of the cytomegalovirus infection, which is associated with the kidney transplants. So when we talk about the vehicle-borne diseases, there are certain things which are important for the occurrence of the disease. It includes, number one, the dose of the infectious agent. Mostly whenever the vehicle-borne transmission is involved, the dose is usually heavy. The dose of the infectious agent is heavy in the medium. It's heavy in the vehicle because it provides a medium for the reproduction of the infectious agent, and most of the times the vehicle-borne diseases have high doses of the infectious agent. Number two, the cases are confined to only those who are exposed to that vehicle. For example, when we talk about certain epidemics of foodborne poisoning, then we all know that the cases are confined only to all those people who were exposed to that particular food which contained the infectious dose. So it is important to note that the vehicle has a high dose of infectious agent. The vehicle-borne transmission is confined to only those who consume the infected vehicle or the infected food. Then sometimes the secondary cases can occur. For example, it is the orophycal transmission, and the infected person transmit the excrete the infectious agent into the feces, and then these feces can contaminate the other sources, for example, the other water supplies or food chains, and then secondary cases may occur, but their number is low. It is important to note that the distance traveled by the vehicle-borne transmission is much longer, because the food prepared in a restaurant or food prepared in a bakery or in any food delivering a company, it can be given to far-flung areas, so it can contaminate a larger distance, and a population residing in on a larger area can get infected with a vehicle-borne transmission. And if, for example, we are talking about the cholera, when the epidemic occurred in England, the main source of infection was water, and the water source was contaminated, and a larger population area was dependent on that particular source when the cholera epidemic occurred. So a larger distance can be covered by the vehicle-borne diseases. Then another important feature is that we can isolate the infectious agent from the vehicle, because it is present there and it is the cause of transmission of infection. So whenever we want to isolate the infectious agent, we can get it isolated from the vehicles. And whenever we are able to control the infectious agent in the medium or in the vehicle, which was basically the mode of transmission of infection, we can control that disease in that particular community. So these are basically the 5 major important criteria, or 6 important major criteria which are associated with vehicle-borne transmission of disease. Moving further to another very important type of indirect transmission of infection, which occurs and which is classified as the vector-borne transmission. The vector-borne transmission means that an arthropod or any other living carrier is involved in the transmission of infectious agent from the infectious host to the susceptible host. And most of the times when we talk about the vector-borne diseases, we are basically talking about the arthropod-borne diseases, which are of medically significant. The classification of vector-borne diseases can be done according to the vector involved. This vector can be of invertebrate type, or it can be of vertebrate type. Whenever we talk about the invertebrate type, we are much concerned about the arthropods. And these arthropods which can transmit the infection include the mosquitoes. We all know that a large number of diseases are involved with the bite of the mosquito, which include the malaria, filaria, yellow fever, dengue fever. We all know that flies are important source of transmission of infection, and in most of the cases of acute diarrheal diseases in Pakistan, the major source of infection are the flies, which transmit the infectious agent through one place to another place. We have different types of diseases which are basically involved with the lice infestation. We have tick infestation, which can cause tick fever. We have Q fever. We have other tick-borne diseases, and tick typhus and tick fever are few examples. For mites, we have an example of Sarcoptes cabii. The cockroaches act as mechanical carriers, and they can transmit the infectious agent from one vehicle to the other vehicle. They can contaminate the food. So whenever we talk about the invertebrate type, we are much more concerned about the arthropods which are transmitting the infection. Another type in which we are concerned with the vector-borne diseases are those in which the living carrier is of vertebrate type. And for example, in case of plague, the transmission of the Yersinia pestis can take place in the mice, in the rodents. Then we have the other examples, for example, the bats, which are involved in transmission of yellow fever. They are involved in transmission of coronavirus, etc. So we can classify the vector-borne diseases according to the type of vector which is involved. It can be of invertebrate type, it can be of vertebrate type. And the another example of the vertebrate type can be the occurrence of the yellow fever, in which the monkeys are involved in the transmission of the chain of infection and maintaining the chain of infection and transmitting the infectious agent from one person to another person, or maintaining the chain of infection. Another classification of vector-borne diseases can be done by transmission chain. And this transmission chain, there are three different types of transmission chains. The chain is maintained between man and non-vertebrate host. The chain is maintained between man, vertebrate host, and non-vertebrate host. And if the chain is maintained between man and two intermediate hosts. So let's take examples one by one. If the chain of transmission of infection is maintained only in man and one non-vertebrate host, the example can be malaria, where the chain of transmission of infection is maintained between humans and mosquito. Another example can be the transmission of schistosomiasis, in which the transmission of infection is maintained between the man and the snail. So this is the type of transmission of infection in which only man and a single non-vertebrate host is involved. Another type by classification of transmission chain is that man is involved along with one vertebrate host and one non-vertebrate host. The example can be the occurrence of plague, in which not only the rats are involved, but also the human beings are involved and the rat flea is involved. Another type of disease which can be included in the example of inclusion of man and a vertebrate host and a non-vertebrate host include the transmission of the encephalitis or encephalitis between human beings and the mosquitoes and the birds. The third type of classification by transmission chain includes when a man and two intermediate hosts are included, and the example can be the fish tapeworm, for example, Diphyllobothrium latum, in which the cyclops are involved and the fish are involved. Another example can be tapeworm infection, in which the cattle is included along with the human beings. For example, Taenia solium and Taenia saginata can be examples when we can classify the transmission of infection between man and two intermediate hosts. Another type of classification through which we can classify the vector-borne diseases are by methods of transmission of disease. Sometimes the arthropods which are involved are capable of transmitting the infection through bite. And the common arthropods which bite are the mosquitoes, sandfly, and fleas. They actually transmit the infection by biting the host. Another type of method of transmission of disease can be through regurgitation, and the house flies are the most important example. They are capable of transmitting the infectious agent through regurgitation. It is said that epidemiologically the house flies are very important because whenever they sit to a surface, they vomit and they defecate. So, whatever they have eaten is actually regurgitated in the form of vomitus or in the form of stools, which contaminates the area or the surface or the vehicle wherever the housefly sits. So, this is one of the best example to show the methods of transmission through regurgitation. Another important method of transmission of infectious disease is actually the scratching. And for example, the fleas sometimes do not bite, and whenever they sit, they actually defecate, and which irritates the skin, and the human beings scratch the skin because of the irritation which is produced, and this scratching can result in the inoculation of the contaminated infectious agent which is put on the surface by these fleas. So these are different modes of transmission of disease by different vectors which can be adopted. Another important type of transmission of disease through vectors in which the classification is done is known as the mechanical transmission and the biological transmission. In mechanical transmission, the infectious agent just gets transmitted from one area to another area, from one vehicle to another vehicle, and there is no development of infectious agent which takes place in the vector, or there is no multiplication which takes place. And one of the best example we have already discussed is the example of the housefly. The housefly, wherever it sits, actually the proboscis and the wings and the legs get contaminated, or even if she ingests some of the infected material, whenever it sits to another medium, it gets transmit this infectious agent through simple regurgitation or by by contaminating that particular uninfected area with the contaminated wings and legs and proboscis. So this is just the mechanical transmission where the infectious agents can get transmitted from one vehicle to another vehicle or from one medium to another medium without any cyclical change or without any developmental change. But if the cyclical or developmental change take place within the vector, this is known as biological transmission. The biological transmission is further subdivided into propagative, cyclopropagative, cyclodevelopmental, transstadial, transovariant type. And let's discuss them one by one. In biological transmission, actually the infectious agent can replicate in the vector. It can go under developmental phases, it can go under cyclical changes within the vector, and it requires a certain time period in that particular vector to complete the changes which are required, and which is known as the incubation period for that vector. So in case of biological transmission, one type of biological transmission is known as propagative transmission, in which the infectious agent just merely gets multiplied in the vector, but there is no change in the form takes place. The example is the multiplication of plague bacilli in the rat fleas. This is the example of the propagative transmission in which just the infectious agent is multiplying in the vector. Sometimes the plague bacilli becomes so abundant in the rat flea that it blocks the alimentary canal of the rat flea, and in that case the rat flea is very hungry, and it bites again and again, and whenever it bites it transmits the bacilli to the susceptible host. So in that case it becomes very dangerous. So propagative transmission is the type of transmission in which the infectious agent is only multiplying in the vector. Another type of biological transmission is known as cyclopropagative transmission. The cyclopropagative transmission is the transmission of infection in which not only the number is increasing as the number is propagating, the number is increasing, but the cyclical changes also take place within the vector. And one of the example is the case of malarial parasite in mosquito. We all know that the malarial parasite, which is Plasmodium, it gets multiplied, it goes under different phases, and cyclical changes takes place in the mosquito before it gets entered into the human host. So this is the example of cyclopropagative. Another type of biological transmission is known as cyclodevelopmental. The infectious agent undergoes only the developmental changes, but the multiplication does not take place. It means the vector does not provide a medium for the multiplication of the organism, but it only provides the medium to undergo the cyclical changes of that infectious agent. And one of the most important example is the presence of microfilaria in the mosquito. The microfilaria cannot multiply in mosquito, but it undergoes the cyclical changes in the mosquito, and it can cause filariasis. Another example of biological transmission is known as transovarian transmission, when the infectious agent is transmitted vertically from the infected arthropod, female arthropod, to the newborn babies of that arthropod. This is known as transovarial transmission because the infective arthropod is capable of transmitting the infectious agent to the next generation through the vertical route. It is known as transovarian transmission. And if the transmission of disease agent from one stage of the life cycle to another stage of the life cycle takes place, this is known as transstadial transmission. For example, the nymph or the larvas are infected, and when they are converted into the adult stage, they are again infected with the same infectious agent. This is known as transstadial transmission. So these are different 5 types of biological transmission. Moving further with the biological transmission, there are certain factors which influence the ability of a vector to transmit the disease. And what are those actually characteristics which can help in the ability of a vector to transmit the disease? Number 1 is the host feeding practice. Let me give you an example of dengue fever. We all know that the dengue fever is transmitted by the bite of the mosquito, which is of special type, which is known as Aedes aegypti. This mosquito is known as a tiger mosquito because it contains white spots on the body, and it can be differentiated from the other mosquitoes by the presence of these white spots on the body. So we will be discussing the example of dengue fever, which is transmitted by Aedes aegypti, which is a specific type of mosquito, which is known as tiger mosquito as well. This mosquito has special host feeding practices that it actually bites only human beings, and it bites early in the morning or late in the evening. So the host feeding practices help him to transmit the infectious agent from one person to another person. Then the infectivity. If the Aedes aegypti is infected with the dengue virus, then only it can transmit the infection of dengue fever. If it is not infected with the dengue virus, then alone only the bite of the Aedes aegypti will not transmit the infection. Then the susceptibility of host is important, on which the bite is done. Definitely, its immunity, its general health status will produce the disease. The survival rate, we know that the average lifespan of a mosquito ranges between 8 to 10 days. So even if it is infected with the dengue virus, one infectious arthropod can transmit the infection till its survival. So the capability of this particular vector of surviving affects the biological transmission as well. Then the domesticity, we all know that the Aedes aegypti is a mosquito which prefers clean water. It prefers the water which is being laid down in the pots and in the green area. So we all know that dengue fever is a disease of a population where a rich population where the home gardens are available or where the greenery is available and the clean water is present in the gardens or in the pots, which can harbor the larval stage and the adult stage of the infected Aedes aegypti. But as compared to the other areas where the dirty water supply is present, the Aedes aegypti never prefers the dirty places. It only prefers the clean places. So the population in the lower socioeconomic group is not infected with the dengue fever as the population of the higher socioeconomic group is affected. Then there are environmental conditions. We all know that for the survival of an arthropod, there should be a specific temperature, specific um, movement of air is important. Sometimes for the mosquito growth, we all know that the rainy season prefers it, and if there's a very high temperature, the mosquitoes die in the environment. So whenever we talk about the biological transmission through vectors, there are multiple factors which play an important role in the transmission of disease as well. Moving back towards the other indirect methods of transmission of disease, another important method of transmission of infection is the airborne transmission. The airborne transmission occurs through the droplet nuclei and the dust. Let me re-emphasize here that when we talked about the direct transmission, we talked about droplet infection. The droplet is basically the infective material which is generated by coughing, sneezing, or talking of the infected person, which contains the infectious agent along with the surrounded water droplet. The droplet infection is capable of transmitting the infection through close contact because it is heavy, because of the presence of droplet. It cannot travel a longer distance. So the close contact is essential for the transmission of infection through airborne route through the droplet infection. But sometimes when these droplets are present in the air, they get dried because of the environmental condition. The water droplet is now no more attached with the infectious agent. And now the infectious agent becomes the droplet nuclei. Now the water droplet is dried up and only the infective material is present in the air. Now the size has been reduced and it can cover a larger distance. It is present in the air and it can infect the susceptible host. And when the droplet nuclei are further, they get dried up and they get settled down on the surfaces, they form the dust particles. And these dust particles become originated again whenever there is dusting or whenever there is mopping or there is cleaning. They again become suspended in the air and they are capable of transmitting the infection to the susceptible host. So whenever we talk about the airborne transmission, the droplet infection, which is basically the infective material plus water droplet, can infect the person, the susceptible host, through direct contact. When these droplets gets dried up and only the infective material is present in the form of droplet nuclei, the droplet is now dried up and only the infective nuclei is present. It can travel a larger distance and it can infect the susceptible host through indirect mode of transmission. And sometimes these droplet nuclei get settled down in the form of dust on different surfaces, and whenever there is cleaning or there is mopping up or there is environmental changes which can again produce these dust particles in the air, they can transmit the infection to the susceptible host even after some time. So the examples of the diseases which can be transmitted through the droplet nuclei include the influenza, chickenpox, measles, ARIs, pneumonias, etc. And when we talk about the dust, the important example can be streptococcal infections, staphylococcal infections, tuberculosis, pneumonias, etc. And when we talk about the infected dust, mostly the nosocomial or the hospital-acquired infections are much more common. Many fungi can also get transmitted through the infected dust which is present in the air. So there should be clear differentiation of airborne transmission to you and how it can play an important role in the transmission through direct contact and how it can play an important role in transmission through indirect contact. And in indirect contact, the droplet nuclei and dust are important for the transmission. Moving further, we have already discussed that there are certain diseases which are in use by the infected person and they can transmit the infection to the other person. They are of the common daily use. They can be bedding, they can be clothes, they can be normal daily utensils, they can be any equipment, it can be contaminated thermometer, it can be contaminated BB apparatus, etc., which can transmit infection. And with increasing modernization, the use of combined computers, PCs, and mobiles can also play an important role in transmission of disease by using these particular equipment. So the examples can be diphtheria and pertussis. Example can be the transmission of typhoid fever by the use of the common crockery or utensils, etc. There can be eye infections, there can be common cold with the common usage of the pens or tissue papers, etc., etc. There is a large list of fomite-borne diseases. The last mode of transmission which we will be discussing is the unclean hands and fingers. And the unclean hands and fingers basically play an important role in the transmission of the diseases which are maintained through the orophycal route. For example, if somebody defecates the infectious agent, and this infectious agent can get transmitted through the orophycal route by the contaminated fingers and contaminated hands. If the proper hygienic conditions are not maintained, it can transmit the infectious agent through the oral route and the disease becomes evident in the susceptible host. So many orophycal diseases, which include typhoid fever, hepatitis A, hepatitis E, many parasitic infections can be transmitted through unclean hands and fingers. So for your assignment today, we have discussed different modes of transmission, in which we have discussed the direct modes of transmission of infection and indirect modes of transmission of infection. And what I want you to do is that you have to now make a table. For each mode of transmission of infection, you have to enlist 5 different diseases which are transmitted by this particular mode of transmission of infection. So you will be making a table of almost 10 columns in which each mode of transmission is written, and you will give me 5 examples for each. And the time given to you for this assignment is 1 hour from the end of the lecture. So if you have any questions, you can contact me. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you.